I used to stay at my grandparents' house a lot when I was younger. They wanted to help out and such. They own around 40 to 50 acres of farm with their house about a quarter mile into the woods. It was summer and we were all going to bed. I always had trouble falling asleep and was only one awake and was returning from the bathroom to join my cousin on the top bunk with me in the bottom. The bedroom had one window facing a light post my grandparents had installed. I was just covering myself up when I saw something cast a shadow against the window curtain. Once, then twice. It was fast, but I could tell there was something moving outside. I crawled out of bed, hugging the floor, already scared. I was about a foot from the closed curtain, with my eye just above the window sill. I stared out for a few seconds, and nothing happened. Then I saw a figure cast a shadow onto the curtain. It looked like a big dog head, long snout, tail, pointed ears. It stopped perfectly center of the window frame, then slowly turned its head to face me. I froze, but it was then raised up a few inches to show its shoulders. I can only describe it as a wolf head on a human body. Then it turned away and moved on. People said I was young and it was only a nightmare. I wasn't able to remember it vividly. I forgot to mention that the window was about 5 feet from the ground. It was my mother's old room as a child, and when I asked her if she ever saw anything, she paused for a few seconds and then shook her head and gave a stuttered no. She knew the folklore and refused to speak, and we dropped it, but I knew why she responded that way. Never mentioned them aloud. I can't explain this. I'm still scared to be alone at night here. Even typing this gave me goosebumps. I am posting here because I don't know what this was, and I want to tell people who will actually believe me. I don't want to give too much information about myself, but I am a male and under the age of 18. Around 9:45 I finished binge watching a random videos on YouTube and I go to bed. By the way, I am in Russia to see my grandma and I live in the Bay Area. At about 10 minutes later, I hear this gut-wrenching moan coming from the outside my window. We live on the 8th floor of a really old apartment building, and it seemed to be coming from about 500 feet away from our floor. The sound was coming from around the bush, and if anything, it had gone louder. I shut the window and the curtains. I went to my grandma to ask to use her phone to call my mom to let her know about a potential crazy guy. I broke my phone by water damage the other day. As I call her, I hear it out of the kitchen window, and it sounds even closer. By the time I got back to my room to write this, it sounds like it is next to the entry gate to the building right below me, but instead of moaning, it sounds like a like a pronunciation on a meh but long high pitch, almost soft sounding, and with an H. A key detail is that it stopped when the rain stopped. Any ideas where it could be? I think it was in Siberia, to be exact. I know it isn't Navajo land, but are there any urban legends or sightings that match mine? I sincerely thank all who read this to the end. I forgot to mention that the sound was very loud, way louder than a human, because from the distance that the sound was coming from, it was not possible for it to sound so clear. It happened late at night, around 11 p.m., perhaps when me and my friend Andrew felt empty in our stomach. We decided to go shop at Walmart since it was open for 24 hours to buy some snacks. After arriving, the whole parking lot in itself felt uneasy. There were no other parked cars besides ours. When we successfully parked and got out, my friend teased me with scary noises. I laughed at the noise he was making, seeming to imitate a ghost poorly. When I catched my breath, my friend stopped walking towards the store. I looked up at him, and his expression was nothing funny. He looked seriously frightened, wrinkles arranged in horror. I asked him what was wrong, and he randomly pulled my body and whispered in my ear, "A shadow is following us," he said, his voice sounding truthful. I brushed it off by declining his allegation, saying he was just messing with me. In truth, I was severely afraid myself for his random action, almost believing him. We continued to walk towards Walmart yet again, but the aura surrounding us felt eerie, that I sweat in fear. Furthermore, my friend was clutching my wrist harshly, his head looking side to side. He really was serious about what he said. When we got inside Walmart, my body felt heavy with something I didn't know, like some pressure was pressed against me. It seemed my friend felt it too. I tried to line up the mood with an inside joke. It only happened twice since Andrew only chuckled rather forcefully. As expected, the Walmart was disordered, save for us. I looked over at the cashier counter, and I was surprised to find nobody tending there. It truly felt like a scene from a horror movie. Before getting some midnight snacks from the snack aisle, Andrew suggested that we look around at the store first. Try to find someone working, he said. I heartily agreed, admitting now how afraid I was. I even blamed him for my fear. If he only didn't scare me on our way here, I wouldn't have felt like this. But when I was saying the words, I couldn't help but silently admit I was being in denial, that I was truly afraid from the start. It was only then, when I started to think I truly felt something following us on our way to the supermarket, as Andrews had said. By my own delusions, or from my revelation, from my self-denial, I did not know. We managed to find someone working at the other side of the store, on another counter. There we saw a girl in a Walmart uniform, a cashier. We brought a dozen worth of snacks to her, and she packed it up, giving us the bag and the receipt. It all happened in heavy silence. On our way back to the car, I finally admitted how I felt there was something watching us go back. Me and my friend looked around for the entity that we both felt its presence. I was only halfway to our car with our bag of snacks as Andrew was behind me, when he immediately ran towards my back and pushed me forward with him to the car. When we were safely there inside, doors locked, I finally understood what was going on. I looked at the back window of the car as Andrew started the engine and saw a man, all in black, following us with a bloody knife. I know this was not a really satisfying ending, but alas, this was the truth as I know it. This story haunts me to this day. I warn all of you that it's pretty disturbing. I recently moved into a new apartment complex. I'm 19 and just started college, and this place seemed perfect. Affordable rent, close to campus, and relatively modern. But from the very first night I started hearing banging noises coming from the walls. At first I thought it was just the old building settling, or maybe noisy neighbors. The banging wasn't constant, but it happened frequently, enough to keep me awake at night. It sounded like someone was hitting the walls with their fists. I asked the neighbors, but they all said they didn't hear anything. I even mentioned it to the landlord, but he brushed it off, saying the building had character. One night, the banging was so loud and persistent that I couldn't ignore it anymore. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I noticed that the noise was always coming from the same spot in my bedroom wall, so I figured I'd open it up. I made an excuse to myself that I needed to run some new electrical wiring. I had been wanting to set up a better sound system for my studies relaxation time, so it seemed reasonable enough. I borrowed some tools from a friend and started to carefully cut into the drywall. My heart was racing, but I kept going. When I finally made a hole enough to see inside, I shined a flashlight into the dark space. What I saw made my blood run cold. There, inside the wall, was a man. His eyes were wide, open, but lifeless. His mouth was covered with duct tape, and his hands were tied behind his back. It was clear he had been dead for a long time, but the sight was still horrifying. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the flashlight, and called the police. And it ends there. I don't know what else to say.